Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. So today I have my labor and delivery video for you guys. So I was originally due on the 19th of November. On the 19th I started losing a little bit of liquids, but it wasn't a massive amount. It was just a little bit every hour. So I didn't make a big deal out of it, and I thought of calling the hospital and I ended up not doing it. Which was kind of a mistake on my part. I'll talk a little bit more on that a little bit later on in this video, but I didn't make such a big deal of it because I didn't have any contractions or any pain of that sort. Then on the 20th I still had a tiny little bit of liquids that were coming out sometimes, but not more than that, and I didn't know if they were like regular liquids or if it was my water that was breaking. I didn't really have a clue, and since I was really stressed out about labor and all that jazz, I didn't call the hospital. It was really stupid of me not to call them, but since I was a little bit stressed out and everything, I didn't end up calling them until the 21st of November. So in the morning of the 21st I started having contractions. They actually woke me up somewhere around 4:30 in the morning, and at that time the contractions were already like less than 10 minutes apart. So I ended up calling at the hospital, and what they told me is that they wanted me to come in based on the fact that I already had lost some liquids. So we ended up finishing to like wrap everything up for the luggage, like the most part of it. For the most part the luggage was already done, but I had a few things that I needed to throw in like last minute. So that's what we did, and we arrived at the hospital somewhere around like 5:30 in the morning, I believe. They like had us sign papers and they checked us in. And we went straight up into the delivery room, and the nurse that was there did a checkup on me, and what she told me is that it was definitely like the liquids that I was losing for the last 2 days were actually it was my water that I had started to break, but it wasn't a clean break, so it was just like a little piece of a break, I guess. So that meant that there was a little bit of liquid coming out, but not a full-on, like it didn't come out all at once. So there was still a little bit of liquids inside, which was a good thing for the baby. So they placed like me and the baby on monitor, and they checked to see like if I was dilated. At that point I was around 2 centimeters. The problem that we had is that the baby's heart rate was a little bit too high, and also I was really feverish. Like I had a fever, and it just kept on going up and up and up and up. And then like an hour later, like somewhere around like 7:30 I believe, the doctor came in, and what he told me is that he checked me out, and what he told me is like, okay, with the heart rate that the baby has, we have like 3 hours for the baby to be out. We cannot wait for it to go longer than that, otherwise it will be a C-section. Which was not something that I wanted. Like if it had to come down to a C-section, fine, but it wasn't what I was hoping on. So that was quite stressful, and then we knew that we had to do it quick and everything, and honestly like the contractions were really bad, and since I had a high-pitched fever, like it made everything worse. I had to take medication, and I was throwing up the medication, so it wasn't that much fun to be in labor at that point. Well, labor is never fun, I guess, but it was a little bit worse. And also like my labor wasn't really in my belly, it really felt bad in my lower back. That's really where I felt it the most. So then the doctor came back, and I'm a little bit confused about the hours at that point because I didn't check the time like ever. Everything went by really fast. But when the doctor came back to check in on me, he finished breaking off like my membrane for the water because it had a tear in it, but it wasn't a clean tear, so he actually like finished that up so that I could get the baby out. And what he told me is that, okay, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna check again to see if you're dilated, and based on if you're dilated or not, we're either gonna go into a C-section, or if we're lucky and you're really dilated, like somewhere around 7 or something, we're gonna be able to wait in to try and push the baby out. So he checked me again at that point, and I was dilated a little bit over 9 centimeter, which was really like, he didn't really think that there was any chance that I was like 7 centimeters up, and I was actually like 9 and up, so it was really, really good. So what he told me at that point is like, okay, so we're going to be starting to push now. And I was not expecting this, like not at all. I actually expected to be pushing like, everyone told me that they were in the hospital for like 10 hours or something like that. So I expected that to be the case for me too. So when he told me that I was going to be pushing right now, I was not mentally ready for that, like at all. Neither was my boyfriend at that point. Like, he felt nauseated as well and everything. So it was a really, it wasn't what we were anticipating at all. And so what ended up happening is that the doctor asked me if I wanted to get an epidural, and I told him yes. And he told me, like, you know what, if it would have been your second child, I would have refused it based on the time that we have, but since it's a first child, I'm gonna go and see if there's an anesthetist in the hospital that's ready to give it to you. We have a grand total of 10 minutes to do it. If there's no one available, then you're not gonna get it. So he went downstairs to try and find someone to give me the epidural. And by that time, like, my boyfriend was like, oh, well, how long do we have and everything? And he asked the nurse if he could like leave to go and have a cigarette, because my boyfriend smokes cigarettes. So he asked the nurse if he could go out and get one just to like ease up a little bit of the stress. And she told him like, you have a max 5 minutes to do it. So he went outside, and he actually got lost in the hospital. He was that stressed that he didn't know where he was going anymore. And then he just came back, but at least he had a little bit of stress off of his mind. Just walking helped him out a little bit. I wish I could have done the same, but honestly, like, the pain was so unbearable, and I was so feverish and weak that I couldn't walk or anything like that. And I was plugged with all the monitors and stuff, so I couldn't walk the pain off or to ease my mind a little bit. So then when he came back, the doctor came back, and he told me, like, you're not going to get it because the anesthetist that is in there are 2 people in the hospital that could give it to you, and none of them are available for the next 10 minutes. So you are going to have to do it without. So he actually like performed another way of like giving you meds to help for the delivery. They are like local meds, so they inject directly in your pelvic area. So that's what I got instead of the epidural that I was kind of hoping for. But anyways, at that point, he told me like, well, we're going to start pushing. So I started pushing, and he left for a little while. I was only with the nurse, and I was trying to get the baby out. It took me a little while to figure out like how to actually physically push the baby out. Like, they explained it to me, but I was like, I really felt stupid that morning. Like, I didn't like get the hang of it until like 2 or 3 tries, and they were explaining it to me in a way that I didn't understand what I had to do. And then I had to like pause and ask again, and then I got the hang of it, and I was able to push like efficiently. However, what happened is that as I was pushing, the baby's heart rate went higher again, and that became like a hardcore medical emergency. So what happened is that the doctor came back in, and he used I don't know what you actually call that machine, but it's a suction machine that they like insert into you, and then they use it to kind of help the baby out. So that's what they ended up using. And what the doctor told me is that I had 3 contraction tries to get the baby out with the suction. Otherwise, they were going to go into another kind of machine. I don't know what it's called in English. In French, it's called the forceps. I'm guessing it's forceps or something like that. But if it didn't get out with the suction, with the 3 tries, then like we were going to go with that. So I ended up like going the 3, like they tried once, it didn't work. Then the second time the machine like got out, they inserted it back in, then they went for a 3rd try, and then like the doctor, the gynecologist was in the room now because they were getting ready to do the other method. But my doctor like argued with her a little bit, and he was like, I'm sure that I can get like the baby out in the 4th try, so I'm gonna try a last resort try. and it actually worked. Like the baby started getting out. But like the doctor actually had me pause because of the way that the baby was placed and everything. He had to like replace the baby, and then I pushed one last time. When I looked at the mirror to see the baby, because there was a mirror in front of me for me to like see when I was pushing. By the way, I absolutely hated the mirror. I asked them not to put the mirror on because for me it was not helping. It was actually more traumatizing than anything. And I didn't want my boyfriend to see that. It was like something that I didn't want him to like see my lady parts as like the stretching and everything. It made me uncomfortable, and even for myself to see it, it made me uncomfortable. But once the baby was there, I wanted to check and see how he was and everything. And the baby was a bluish grayish tint, so I was really worried at that point. And then like the doctor got him out and he took him like by the feet, and he like started like pinching him or whatever he was doing to get the baby to cry. It took like a few seconds longer than it should have, but the baby eventually started crying, so they placed him on me. At that point it was like, okay, everything is good and we're out of the water. Well, I was a tiny little bit wrong. The doctor had my boyfriend cut the cord, and then they took the baby away. It was really traumatizing. Like, you've just had your newborn and you're expecting to like be with him for a little while and to cuddle up and all that jazz, and I couldn't do that right away. They wanted to get the baby checked out and everything, and they wanted to make sure that he was breathing correctly because he was in a little bit in distress at that point. So the doctor, so I was kept in the room with the doctor and my boyfriend, the nurses, and the baby got away. They had to do a little bit of stitching. What the doctor explained to me is that if you are using like the suction thing, you're definitely going to have some tear. It's kind of impossible to have that and not have any tear. However, I was kind of lucky because I only had a 2nd degree tear. Often when they're using that, it goes up to a fourth degree. So a 2nd degree wasn't all that bad, and that's the reason that the doctor had me stop at some point. It was because the baby, the way he was, if I would have pushed again, then I would definitely have had a big tear. So he ended up stitching me up, and then the nurse came back. My nurse stayed with me for a little while and made sure that I was okay, and then got me cleaned up and made sure that I had a little bit of something to eat. While they were doing all of that, the nurses came back in with the baby for like a 20-second just so that I could see him a little bit. At that point, his skin color was back to normal, which was reassuring. And like the doctor that was stitching me up explained to me the different scenarios that I had. So based on there were a few things that were kind of wrong with me. The first thing is that my water had broke 2 days before, so I should have been in the hospital on Saturday, which I wasn't. I was only at the hospital on Monday. So based off of that, there was a risk of infection for the baby. The second thing is that I had a strep B positive test. So I needed antibiotics when I got in the hospital, and I needed to have the antibiotics for 4 hours. However, I wasn't in the hospital for 4 hours. I got in the hospital at 9:30, and I delivered my baby by 9. I got in the hospital at 6:30, and I delivered my baby at 9:34. So I was in the hospital for 3 hours. So I didn't have enough antibiotics for the baby to have the antibodies for strep B. So there was a risk of strep B, plus because of my fever, there was also another risk factor. So that's why they were with the baby and testing him out and making sure he was okay. And that's why I couldn't be with him right away. Luckily my boyfriend was with the baby, so he had one of us with him. Once I was done being stitched up and clean and everything, and I had a little bit of emergency food in my system, they took me to the room, the room with the babies. Typically, I don't know in the US, but in Quebec, typically the babies are in the room with their mothers. They have their little bed in your own room. Unless the baby is sick or something like that, then they're in the nursery with all the other babies, the preemies and all that jazz. My baby was in that room, and when they finally took me to him, he had something to help him breathe because his oxygen saturation wasn't right. He was not in high distress, but he wasn't totally okay. So they gave him to me so that I could do a little bit of skin to skin. And he also like wanted to feed. Technically he didn't need to feed because he was on IV, and the IV was enough to keep him fed, but he still wanted to nurse, so I nursed him for a little while, and then we went into, like, my boyfriend and I left the baby in the nursery because he was asleep, and we went into a room to have a little bit of something to eat and to like go to the bathroom and stuff like that. So that was pretty much like the delivery process. It was a little bit traumatic because it wasn't the way that I expected it to be. It was way faster and way more stressful. However, the baby was, however, there are pros and cons to that. Like, it was more stress, but it was like a shorter period of pain, I guess. Overall, the recovery didn't go too bad for me. I'm just gonna go a little bit more into details on like what the recovery went like for the baby. So for the baby, he had, what they did when he was away from me, they had like blood tests done and stuff like that, and they had an IV installed into him so that he can get like medication, antibiotics, as well as just regular fluids to help him out. He also was on a breathing monitor, but they took it out like really fast. Like within 3 hours of him being born, they took that out, and he was into an incubator to help with the oxygen saturation. For the first day and a half, he was in the nursery with the other babies. They were checking up on him and all that jazz, and they were making sure that he was okay. Constantly being monitored, and when we were taking him in our arms, like we had all of those like there were a lot of things plugged into him, so it was kind of hard to do, and it was stressful and all that stuff. After a day and a half, like on the second night that he, like not the first night, on the second night, they finally gave us the okay to bring him into our room. So that night my boyfriend was sleeping at home to take care of the cat and make sure that everything was okay at home. So I had my mom come into the hospital and take care of the baby with me for that second night. It was like, he was still plugged with the IV and stuff like that, but he had a lot of like the cords and stuff taken out of him, which was good. The following morning, but they were still doing like really regular blood tests. Well, he was in the hospital. He had some antibiotics 3 times a day, and then every like 2 hours he was being monitored, and he had like blood tests done all the time to him. On the 3rd day that we were in the hospital, I got my clearing for myself to get out, but the baby didn't get his clearing, so I still had to stay in the hospital to actually nurse him and take care of him. But by that 3rd day, they were worried about what was going on, because he had like, his antibodies were like really high, so there was like evidence of something being wrong, but all of this blood test and everything was coming back normal, so they didn't know what was wrong with him. He had like, they did x-rays on him, and they also did, I don't know how you call that, but like when you take liquids out of the spinal cord, they also did that to make sure that they eliminated every possibility of everything. They were checking like to see what type of infection he had. They didn't know what was going on. We ended up staying in the hospital until, I gave birth on Monday. We ended up staying in the hospital until Sunday, so almost a week. They never really knew what was going on. They never really found out what was going on with the baby, but at some point, like, everything went back into normal. His vital signs were good. The markers of infections, everything went back into normal, so they let us leave and come back home, which was like a blessing, because I really couldn't sleep right in the hospital. It was really a pain, and since he was plugged until the last minute, it was hard to nurse and everything with the cords and all that jazz. So we finally got our clearing to come home on Sunday, which was really nice. We had to go back in to the hospital on Tuesday for a checkup to make sure that everything was still going fine. But everything was going fine. So until since then, everything has been going perfect. He is gaining a ton of weight. When he was born, he was 8 pounds, 3 ounces and a quarter. And now he is less than a month later, he's over 10.5 pounds or something like that. So he is quite a big baby. Even when he was born, everyone told me that I was having a 7-pound baby-ish because I didn't have that much of a big belly, and the x-rays and everything meant that I was supposed to have a smaller baby, but he came up to be almost 8.5. The doctor, when he delivered the baby, he was like, "Where were you hiding that baby?" Honestly, the doctor that delivered my baby was also the doctor that delivered me when I was born. So he's been around for ages, and even him, he was like, "I never expected you to have a big baby. Honestly, with the belly that you had, and with touching and everything, he was certain that it was a tiny baby. So no one could guess it was that big of a child." But ever since, he's been super healthy. He's had blood tests done again afterwards just to make sure that everything was fine. Everything is 100% back into normal. He's feeding well. Honestly, I was one of those people who didn't know if I wanted to breastfeed or not. Breastfeeding has been a breeze with my son, to be quite honest. I'm so lucky. He took really well, quite easily at first, and now it's perfection. It doesn't cause me any pain. It just goes so well. So that has been awesome. He's a really good baby. He doesn't cry a lot. He's not a whiny kid. He does sleep rather well. Honestly, we have some bad nights as everybody else does, but some nights I get 4 consecutive I get stretches of 4 hours throughout the night. So he will sleep for 4 hours, be up for half an hour to an hour to be nursed, and then go again for 4 hours, which is really rare for such a young child. He currently is a month old. So for a month, and he has been doing that for over 2 weeks. So honestly, we have an awesome baby. I'm really happy. I'm really blessed to have him in my life, and I'm super happy that the hard part is over. However, if I could have done it differently, of course I would have gone into the hospital on Saturday. And I will say that if you are watching this, please do learn from my mistakes, and if you feel there's something that isn't normal with yourself, call the hospital. Don't wait and don't hesitate, because honestly, when your baby's not doing great in the hospital, you will feel guilty as hell. I felt terrible. There were days where I would just cry while they were doing tests on my baby, and just because I felt like the stupidest mother on earth. I was like, why did I wait? Why is my all of this is happening because of me? So all that guilt and all that stuff isn't really something that you want in your life. So you should, if you feel there's something that's not normal, call the hospital. You have to, otherwise you will feel like shit afterwards, really. But anyways, now he's doing perfect, and there's nothing doing wrong with him. Everything is normal, and I'm really happy about that. So that was my labor and delivery story. So this is it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. So I plan to do a few more of those mommy videos and stuff like that. If you have any requests, please leave them down below. What I plan to do is to do a mommy type video on Monday every other week. Not to have too many of those on my channel. I have other plans for that. I also have other plans, but I'm gonna wait until they are actually certain to talk about them. But if you have, as I mentioned, any requests, leave them down below. I plan to do some postpartum essentials and newborn must-haves and stuff like that. So I have a few on my mind, but I will let you guys know as I go. But if you have any ideas, let me know. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next one. Have a great day.